Welcome to Unit 3 of Lesson 7, Growth Happens Outside Our Comfort Zone. A few years ago, I had been toying with a yoga retreat for quite a while, actually. So when I decided to leave my comfortable government job that I had for a couple of years to venture back into the private sector, I figured there was no time like the present. And I mentioned before that reflection is a huge part of my life. And sometimes I would go away to a local retreat, sometimes just do something at home. But this time I was really looking to get out of my head and spend time alone in nature and experience a different culture, really to reflect and focus. I was hoping to ground myself and really explore me as a person in a different country, without the comfort of, routine or the safety of home and the familiarity even of my language or having my friends and family close by. I wanted to deepen my yoga practice at the time and really augment my knowledge of Reiki. I had been studying Reiki at the time. And spend time, balancing my chakras that, the ones that were blocked, and really connect with my purpose and passion. This is, it was something I had felt so strong about doing this. So although I originally was really intending to travel somewhere in Indonesia, by the time I factored in the flight, it was going to take an extra 4 days and about $2,000. So off to Italy I went. And this Italy, I had done some research and I decided on an Italy farm retreat. And the farm I went to was located between Sora and Pescosolido, which are hill towns in the southern region of Italy. So it was an 8-hour flight to Rome, a half-hour train ride to Termini, a 45-minute subway journey to Enignia, and then a 2-hour bus ride to Sora. And I managed to navigate all the transfers with little difficulty, despite a bit of track confusion at the bus station, and arrived a little car sick and tired, but alive in the beautiful countryside hills of Italy. During this retreat, I learned 3 really valuable lessons for me, which really feed nicely into the discussion of growth and, outside our comfort zone. So I thought it would be perfect to share them with you. So lesson 1, my first lesson that I learned: accept the things you cannot change. So as I was waiting for the bus in Enignia, I checked with Antonello, he's the owner of the farm, and he was making the arrangements to have me picked up in Sora. And he told me that the farm had a large group of students there, so when I arrived that night, I'd be staying elsewhere at his friend Anna's. So having traveled for over 14 hours at this point, by the time I would get to and even more by the time I would get to the property, I was really hoping to get settled rather than staying elsewhere for one night, not being able to unpack, and really having to worry about the uncertainty of how or when I'm going to get to begin my farm stay the following day. So that said, I did learn a long time ago that there's no point in getting frustrated or filling yourself with negative emotion over things that you have no control over, which I had no control over this. So as it was, and I reminded myself to be grateful that I had a roof over my head, and that roof was in the mountains of Italy. Now, in the end, this was the best diversion from the scheduled plan, because I ended up meeting 2 other women who were staying at Anna's, and we instantly became friends. And as it turned out, when I arrived at the farm the following day, I was the only guest there for a week. There were a ton of volunteers, but I was the only guest. So had I not spent my first night at Anna's, I wouldn't have found my hiking and horseback riding partners in crime. So, we spent a few days and several kilometers trekking the glorious mountains of Sora and Pescosolido together. And I wouldn't have had that experience had I not had that kink in the original plan, which originally I was a little upset over. So that was one of my lessons. Lesson 2 I'll share with you is when one door closes, another one opens. And, this isn't anything new or groundbreaking. We've all heard this, but this really came to light for me during the retreat. So one of the main reasons I booked the Italy farm retreat was because it offered both yoga and Reiki. And I had completed my levels in 1 and 2 Reiki training earlier that year, but online. So I practiced on myself, but I hadn't really had any formal in-person training. So I was really hoping to deepen my knowledge of the practice and experience it hands-on, metaphorically, of course, because Reiki is all about energy and not the hands. But as it turned out, the Reiki healer wasn't at the farm the same week that I was there. So Reiki sessions were off the table, which really made me sad because it was one of the reasons that I had booked the retreat. So, understanding that Reiki was one of the things that I was really hoping to experience during my stay, Antonello got to work to set me up with a Reiki healer on the outskirts of town midweek. He was phenomenal. He even made arrangements to get me there. So I spent one of the most magical hours of my life with that Reiki healer. Alethea was her name. And, as I laid on her table, I could feel every bit of energy flow within me. I could feel like the negative energy leaving my body. I could literally feel it, and the cleansing of my aura and the replenishment of healing energy shooting through me like fireworks in the sky. It was the most phenomenal experience. Following the session, I felt like I had just run through a car wash for the soul. That's what it felt like. I felt lighter. I felt uninhibited. I felt more grounded and centered. And Athea actually shared with me as well that it was a really wonderful experience for her too. And because she explained that often people come who have a negative or a dark energy, and it's exhausting for the healer to treat them. And she went on to share with me that, my energy invigorated her and it gave her more energy and actually, elevated and uplifted her. She said that she could actually feel the purity of my soul and the goodness within me. I've never received more sincere, heartwarming compliments in my life. And it felt so good to feel that way and to hear those things. So, perhaps the farm Reiki healer would have been just as amazing, but I believe that I was really meant to be with Ithia that day. And I think, if the scheduled healer was available, obviously I would have missed out on this life-changing really experience for me. And then the third lesson I'll share with you, I did learn some other things through reflection as well, but these are my 3 key during this retreat. So the third lesson I learned is experiences don't need luggage. The farm I stayed at is run by volunteers. So volunteers, they cook, they clean, they harvest, they teach the yoga at various places within the village. And most of the volunteers range in age from about early 20s to about mid-30s. So I practiced with 3 different yoga instructors during my stay. One was from Mexico, one was from the US, and one was from Scandinavia. And all of them had been traveling for years, individually, not together. And each of them had studied yoga in Indonesia and then spent a few months in various cities around the world teaching at different retreats. And they really had very few possessions and travel with a backpack and a yoga mat, literally. And the volunteers have a similar story, minus the yoga. The volunteers weren't yoga teachers or anything, and they had a little less of a nomad style since most of them had a home base, but they would spend their time volunteering at different farms or summer camps during the summer months, so then they could experience the world and then go home when the cooler weather approached. I met people from Argentina, Germany, France, England, Holland, Norway, and the US. And even the 2 guests I met at Anna's that I mentioned earlier traveled with only a backpack and a smile. Like literally that's how they traveled. And I admired all of them for their strength and courage and, for so many reasons. So as I hauled my medium-sized luggage with wheels that served no purpose, as I had to lug, up and down the train station stairs, off the farm, and began my journey home, it really occurred to me, there was no reason I couldn't have traveled with a simple carry-on. I consider myself an experienced person over things person. So why did I feel the need to bring so many things with me? In the end, these things just really weighed me down physically and metaphorically. So I've really come to believe that when we allow ourselves to let go of our things, the lighter we feel and the more in tune we are with our purpose and the more present we are during our journey because we're not focused on the things, and the more enlightened we become through these experiences. I thoroughly enjoyed my mini sabbatical in the hill towns of Italy, and I learned so many other lessons about myself and my survival skills and really who I am as a person. And although I've traveled alone a lot in the past, whether like for business or to familiar kind of go-to spots, this experience was unique, and I would absolutely recommend this or something similar to anyone who's really looking to reconnect with themselves at a deeper level, or really even to infuse themselves with self-love and self-care, free from judgment, free from inhibitions, free from limitations. Embarking on an experience like this, really completely outside of our comfort zone, truly enables us to shift from that place of comfort into a zone of growth. Now, moving out of our comfort zone and into growth zone doesn't always need to be something as extravagant as, world travel. Anything you choose to try and learn that's different from what you're doing day in and day out is growth zone. You can learn a new instrument. You can study something new. You can learn a new dance, new exercise, new language. I recently finished a 7-week belly dancing program. And although I love to dance, I dance all the time, the art of belly dancing was really new to me. And it was a great challenge. I learned a lot about myself. I learned to move my body in ways that were really foreign to me. So even just expanding on what you already know shifts us into growth zone. So with that, I challenge you to introduce something new into your life. I promise you will feel stimulated and invigorated as you fumble through and learn to master it. That's it for lesson 3 of unit 7. We'll see you in the next video where we'll talk a little bit about forgiveness. Can't wait to see you there.